So the chances are that you already know how to use the brush tool in Adobe Photoshop. But one of the things that we often forget to learn when we start to use the brush tool is that you can actually change the angle and roundness of your brush. And this can be very handy, especially if we're trying to do tasks such as calligraphy, or even as simple as trying to draw 3D looking shadows in an image. So in this video, what we're going to do is take a look at how we can control the roundness and angle of our brush in Adobe Photoshop. Cool, so as you can see, I'm already in Adobe Photoshop and I already have the brush tool selected. If you're not sure as to where you can find the brush tool, it's on the left-hand toolbar right here. And as you can see, the shortcut to the brush tool is the letter B. And that's both for Windows and Mac on your keyboard. So just making sure that you have that selected. As you can see, when I start to draw a line at the moment, there's actually no change in the angle or roundness of our brush at all. And there's actually a few different places from which we can control these parameters in Adobe Photoshop. So the first place from which we can control these settings are in the parameters at the top of our screen. So these parameters should always appear anytime that you have the brush tool selected. And the option that we're interested in is this first option here. So if we just press on the arrow that drops down, we're going to ignore the size and the hardness of our brush, as well as the presets of our brush. If you decide to use any preset, you should also be able to change the angle and roundness of that preset. So the option that we're interested in is this first diagram here. Now, as you can see, there's no actual parameters for the angle and roundness of the brush. So if you want to be able to control that, we actually need to find this diagram in another place, and that's from brush settings. So ignoring this option, if I just quickly close this panel, we can go to window and then go to brush settings. So just making sure there is a tick next to that. On the right hand side, we should open a panel which allows us to control the angle and roundness of our brush. And as you can see, that same diagram appears here. So you can use the first option if you want to quickly be able to change the angle and roundness of your brush. But if you actually want to be able to find the values themselves, you'll need to go to brush settings. So there's two ways in which we can control the angle and roundness. The first way is to use the diagram itself. So in order to change the roundness of our brush, we can use these two dots that appear on top and at bottom of our circle. And as you can see in the preview at the bottom here, this is automatically going to change the roundness of our brush. In order to change the angle, we can actually control the angle using this arrow that points to the right. So just by holding and dragging that in a different direction, we can adjust the angle of our brush. If you want something very specific, for example, say at 90 degrees, you can just input that value. And as you can see, that's automatically going to snap to that 90-degree value. So as you can see, it's very, very simple. That's essentially how you control the angle and roundness of your brush. So if I now go back to my canvas, as you can see, my brush is now in a 90-degree angle. And we've also adjusted the roundness of our brush to 25%. If I change that once more, let's say I angle it around 30 degrees, and I decrease the value even further to about 4%, I'm going to be left with a very thin brush. Now, if you want, you can also flip the brush in the X or Y axis. So as you can see, that flips it in that direction, and Y will flip it in the Y axis. So the Y axis is going from top to bottom, the X axis is going from left to right. And that's especially useful if you do have a preset which has a custom brush. So for example, if I use this brush, if I flip it, the pattern is going to be on the other side. If I flip the Y, as you can see, the larger dots right here now appear at the bottom of our preset, whereas before they appeared at the top. So that's how you can flip your brush over if you want to be able to do that too. So that essentially is how you can change the angle and roundness of your brushes in Adobe Photoshop. If you're interested in learning how you can draw straight lines in Adobe Photoshop, then do check out the video on the right of the end screen. And otherwise, if you'd be interested in becoming a member of the channel, which gives you early access to videos as well as some other extra perks, then there is a link in the description of this video if you would like to support the channel.